Hi, this is Aubrey Frederick from iCAD Solutions. Today we are making a video using BuildingSP's GenMEP plugin. I think as a former BIM modeler and BIM coordinator, I wish I had a tool like this in the past. But today we're going to show you some of the things that GenMEP could help you with in a typical BIM workflow. So what you have here before you is a sample model. Um, and I'm coming from the perspective of pre-coordination and setting up your project with the wealth of this information that we receive before we even start to model. Um, so there are some cool things you could do with that information in regards to setting up your workflow to use Gen MEP plugin from Building SP. So I just wanted to show you some of the ways that I would use this tool, and definitely would appreciate your feedback. Um, if you look over to the side of my project browser, I have a few things set up over here to help me out. So I've made some enlargements already of known electrical rooms where we will have our stub in and risers, and distributing through the rest of the building from there. Also in my 3D views, I have a Gen MEP view that I've made and some views of the electrical rooms again, enlargements of known electrical rooms. So my thinking here is uh, during that downtime before we start modeling, there's a lot of information that's provided as far as layout, feeder, schedules, and sizes of equipment. So we can take uh, that information, and for some of us that do project setup in Revit, we normally use a template before we get started. So if you were to apply a little bit of front end management there with that information, go into your electrical rooms and create yourself a couple of stubs in your openings or your windows on some of your gears and equipment that matches how the designer or the foreman plans to create the conduit runs or the conduit racks. So if I were to go into some of these rooms here, you see that I've already placed some groupings of conduit stubs on the top of the panels that I'd like to use. If I go to my floor plan here, and all this example is in level 1, I have some groups of stubs placed throughout the route that I would like to take, presumably predetermined during the layout phase of where we're going to go. So we're using our normal project setup and template to kind of help us pre-coordinate some of the content that we know needs to be in the model based on the drawings that we have received already. So in this example, we're going from the main electrical room or electrical riser over here to the technology room. And I'm going to show you, or I want to show you some of the ways that um, the GenMEP plugin could help us. And the cool thing about this plugin is it almost rewards you for getting started even earlier and earlier as possible. So as the model starts to populate, because as you know, we may not have the structural when we get started. We definitely may not have the other disciplines or trades models. So you have a pretty clean model, and it would be nice to have a little bit of control over your conduit run as other trades and disciplines start to populate the model. So I'm going to show you a few techniques that I would use. One to populate without other trades being there, and what happens once duct and things start to get in your way. So I'm going to go over to my GenMEP level 1 3D view. And already in this view, I have everything turned off but my electrical equipment and conduit. So before I get started, I'm going to go into the add-in, and I will regenerate my plenum spaces. Doing this step ensures that you have a high level of success with your auto routing. And going back to my project template here, so in this template, it is called stubs. So this is a template that I would have pre-populated based on the equipment coming out of the electrical room and any markups or diagrams provided from the designer or foreman on site to let me know how he intends to lay out the design. So while that's getting refined and fine-tuned, I can take that information as a detailer or a modeler and go into the model um, to create checkpoints for me to go back to once that information is solidified. So if I zoom in here to the main electrical room, and I'm going to close some of these other windows so you can see this happening at the same time. So as you can see, I have my grouper stubs, and any of you that are experienced detailers, should be a very familiar workflow. Um, we normally lay out these little groups of stubs and use the fillet command, whether we're in AutoCAD MEP or in Revit, the trim command. Um, so essentially, GenMEP has our workflow in mind. So it's pretty nice to see the ways that you could use these stubs that we would normally place in the model anyway. So I've created some shortcuts for my plugins already. So for my add-in, I'm going to use the GUI auto route, and I'll show you some of these other features as I go while I can. So when I engage the GUI auto route, if I hover in space here, it should be asking to select first and second connector. And once this window pops up after you've selected your first and second connector, you have a few options. But just based off of the user guide, we're going to follow the suggested settings. So direct route, late alignment with destination, and um, it says that you should leave use only 90 degrees elbows unchecked. But for this purpose, the way that it's going to auto route that with the 90s, I would like it to use the 90s coming out of the electrical room at least. And we give it a second here, and it has been routed. So you may be asking, well, that's cool, but what's the benefit to me here if when things start to populate the model? So we're going to draw in a piece of duct here. So our conduit is 9-1. I want to bring our duct down a little bit. As we can see, this newly placed piece of duct is going through the conduit that we've already auto routed. So let's see what happens when we auto route again. I'm going to bring up another view here. So this is this area here, same area. I'm going to take my auto route. I've selected my first and second connector, but this time I will uncheck use only 90-degree elbows. And as you can see in our section profile view, it has avoided the duct that was placed in its path. And this is where this add-in is worth every penny. Being able to have that automatically routed so that you can continue on with your design and layout saves saves a ton of time. And it also is nice to know that you have settings that will allow you to avoid the certain geometry that you know you need to avoid while you're laying out your system. So I'm going to take our first run and redo that run knowing that the duct, or redo that one pipe knowing that the duct is in the way. So I hit my shortcut for GUI Autoroute, have use only 90 elbows unchecked, and again, same result. So it's a pretty cool feature to have that ability to do that on the go and on the fly as your model starts to change. No one likes to go back and redo their work, but with a little bit of planning and forethought, you could plan for the change management that is going to take place in your model during the duration of the coordination process. One of the main things about using GenMEP from BuildingSP is the fact that it allows you to model with clash-free, as you know, with the intent of being clash-free, not modeling with the intent to wait to get to Navisworks to be clash-free. So having this ability here for this to avoid obstructions while you're laying it out live as you're going reduces the time that will be spent in Navisworks, because your model will be 80 to 90% there, coordinated, clash free on the first pass before you ever get to a coordination meeting. So right now I'm going to close this file, not going to save. I'm going to open up my runs file for conduit runs. And again, this is a workflow of a new project, new construction. Model is very clean and open. So I am back to my GenMEP 3D view and go back up into my add-in. I am going to regenerate plenum. So as a detailer or modeler, you may do a run, and you may only get through part of that run for the day. Um, so maybe you'd like to come back and pick up where you left off. But anything could happen. Another modeler could go into your model. Somebody could have provided a model that places equipment or content in direct line of your path. So using the batch auto route, I can pick up where I left off, or start a new project using our template file with the stubs, and then bring in our batch auto route. So the first one I'm going to bring in is the one that takes me from the electrical room to the corridor. So I've already regenerated my plenums, and now I will bring in my batch auto route. Another reason for having these groups of stubs in our model is that as change happens, there are sections in my run where if I disconnect pieces of the conduit and move these groups of stubbings or stubs to different areas, when I bring in this batch auto route, it will take into account where that group of stubs is now and generate a route based on that new location. So that can be very helpful as change management starts to get implemented on the actual Revit model. So as you can see, we've made it out of the electric room into the corridor. We also have another group of stubs here in the corridor and some in the other electric room that we are trying to land. So I will bring in my batch to take it from the length of the corridor. Pretty fast and reliable. So this last group of stubs, because there is this little room before our electrical room, I made this group of stubs a little bit longer so that I can fan out here at the end towards the panels. So I'm going to bring in this last batch to take us from the corridor into the second electrical room. So now I've completed a run from our main electrical room to a secondary electrical room here on level 1. And what I can do now is focus on other areas that require a lot of attention for me to go into detail for constructability or anything of that nature. So GenMEP, in a sense, it allows you to put a lot of the time that we waste on an MEP or BIM modeling project and move it towards other areas that should require a lot of attention. As you're modeling, you should not worry about coordination and clashes. Having this tool, which helps you to avoid content automatically, dramatically cuts down on that time that you would use for coordination and keep that time on the design and constructability side. In our next lesson, we will take a look at this was modeling from new construction. We'll take a look at what happens when there's some stuff already in there. Maybe it's not the perfect model when you get it. So please let me know what you think, and we'll see you next time.